glitch and we had to start over.
Oh.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Backed by popular demand, we have Michelle Davis. She is one of the coaches for Mastering Diabetes. She did a fabulous cooking demo last time she was on, so of course we invited her back right away. She's all dressed in the holiday spirit, and she is going to be doing all things buckwheat. So here is Michelle.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here at my favorite time of year to talk to you about buckwheat today, Chef AJ.
Yeah, so I'd love to know more because it's not a grain that I use a lot. So I love the idea of just not using oats for everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I was forced into this because I have celiac disease. I live with celiac disease. And so let me say that buckwheat doesn't mean wheat. It's not a gluten grain at all. It's totally in its own category. And a lot of people are confused about that. They hear wheat and think, oh, but it's not. But I, as a celiac, came to discover that I reacted to oats, even those labeled gluten-free oats, the same way I react to gluten. So for that reason, I had to find a go-to grain, and I discovered buckwheat, and I absolutely love it. But I thought I didn't like it because back in my former life, I had buckwheat pancakes that were nasty. And so if you think you don't like buckwheat today, people, you might just love it like I do.
Great. I mean, is kasha varnishkis, is that buckwheat?
Kashi is a form of toasted buckwheat. I don't buy it that way. I actually buy 25-pound bags of buckwheat groats, and they're raw. And I'm going to show you here. I have some in this pretty little Christmas tree container, but they unhulled oat groats are black like this. I'm sitting it right on the star. Can you see that? They're black, and so you don't want to get them unhulled. You want them hulled out of the hull, and they look sort of greenish tan, and they're sort of triangular. The amazing thing that I didn't discover for a while is that you can actually take these and eat them just like this. They're chewable and they're kind of crunchy. So they're nice to put on top of a bowl or something. And so I got started on them because you can use them just like you would use oats in a recipe. And so many recipes call for oats. And since I can't do oats, buckwheat is my go-to. But then I discovered, I wanted to make granola, which we're going to make today. And most people use oats in their granola, but since I can't do that, I make this buckwheat granola, which is amazing. And we're going to make that today. And I also buy buckwheat grits. They look similar, but they're a little bit broken, kind of less processed definitely than rolled oats, but buckwheat that's broken up a little bit. So it cooks in 10 minutes into a porridge, which is also nice. So we're going to be talking about some of the benefits of buckwheat as we go along today, but we can get started whenever you're ready.
And where do you buy it? I mean, because it's not like I've never seen it like at Trader Joe's or a regular grocery store.
Right. Actually, the grocery stores, a lot of your health food stores will have the Bob's Red Mill, and it's in bulk bins. But Bob's Red Mill makes an organic, which with grains, I always go organic because they're now desiccating them with glyphosate so many grains. So I go organic, but this is actually out off of the Bob's Red Mill buckwheat grits package. It's the directions for cooking them. And I buy them though in 25-pound bags from Azure Standard, AZURE, standard.com. They deliver, actually, they're based in Oregon where I live, but they deliver clear across the country.
Nice.
So I get a delivery once a month from them, and I get my groats there. So that's just, if you're serious about groats, that's the most inexpensive way to handle it.
Do you always sprout them before you use them?
No, I don't always sprout them before I use them. Now, in one of my recipes today, the buckwheat granola, I've soaked it and sprouted it, but sometimes, like in some of the other recipes today, they aren't sprouted.
Great.
Yeah. And I can't wait to share with you. One of the things that has been life-changing for me is these wraps I make. It's just whole buckwheat and water. Simply, that's it. And then you can spice it however you want. It doesn't stick on the pan. It doesn't need oil. And it's helped so many people kick the bread habit because it's a whole buckwheat wrap. And you can replace, you know, tortillas and bread. So that's great.
Cool. That sounds incredible.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing we're going to do today is a buckwheat breakfast, if you're ready.
Can't wait.
Okay.
I know that I went to raw culinary school and they did use buckwheat in granola. So I guess it can be eaten raw if you soak it.
Oh, absolutely. And actually it's eaten raw in 2 of my 3 recipes today. So I'm going to start by just showing you. I've already made, well, let's make it and then I'll show you that. We're going to make this buckwheat granola today. And so, I mean, not buckwheat granola, overnight buckwheat. This is a raw recipe. I use this 1 day a week. I try to eat all raw. And so this is what I use for that. And I have my buckwheat groats, a half a cup of them. And I'm just putting them in the bowl that I'm actually going to be able to serve it in if I choose to. And so I put that there with a tablespoon of chia seeds. I'm a coach for Mastering Diabetes, and we recommend everybody have a tablespoon of chia or flax seeds every day for those powerful omega-3s. And so this is a great way to have your, you've got your chia seed and your buckwheat, and it's raw, just plain, and ready to go. And then I'm gonna, just like overnight oats, overnight buckwheat uses milk. But Chef AJ, last time I think I told you about green milk, but today I'm gonna show you, I found this with Mastering Diabetes when we had Rocktober. It was a emphasis on raw food. And I made banana, and I found a recipe they had for banana milk. Banana milk. So this is their recipe, and then I'll show you. I never just follow a recipe. I had to make it my own. So you use 1 ripe banana, and you use 1/4 cup of water, and you use a tablespoon of pure vanilla. And that is all you need to make banana milk. And so I'm going to blend this up, and it makes a milk that you could put on oats or whatever, or your whatever you wanted to use milk for. You told me about zucchini milk last time.
Yeah, I've made banana milk before. It's very good.
That's all there is to making banana milk. Pretty cool, huh? So I decided I like to promote all things green. So I decided to make my green milk with spinach, and I used 3 or 4 ounces. I'm just going to show you this plate here, and it's on a scale because I like you to see how much spinach you're getting in this breakfast. We believe in vegetables for breakfast, right, Chef AJ?
I do.
I do too. I get my 2 pounds every day. That was so life-changing for me. Hold on a second. Let me get this zeroed out. You know, as far as maintaining a healthy weight and never having to worry about it, my 2 pounds of raw and cooked vegetables a day is huge. So there we're at 1.5 ounces of spinach. Imagine eating a salad this big. The spinach. Okay, there we are, 3 ounces of spinach. And you notice that's a whole plateful. That would be most people's salad, right? Well, that's all going into our overnight buckwheat. We're gonna put this into the blender with our banana milk. I made it in this order. You could just throw everything in, but I wanted to show you the banana milk first because I thought that was pretty cool. Leave it to Mastering Diabetes. They have a lot of great recipes. And we believe in greens, and I emphasize this with my clients, greens at every meal if you can, because greens are incredibly stabilizing for blood glucose. They're healing. I've believed in them for years for healing, but For blood glucose, greens are magic. I tell my clients, greens are the means. They help you stabilize blood sugar.
And they also make you get lean.
Oh, yes, I like them for that reason too. Oh, the one other thing we're going to throw in there is our date. And I have one Medjool date. Always remove the pit. I had a client once not realize there was a pit in there. Believe me, it won't grind up. So always remove the pit. And I have to say, Chef AJ, whenever we are on the road, I take this overnight buckwheat breakfast because it is wonderful for travel. And, you know, because you can have it ready, you get up and you hit the road and it's in your cooler. When we camp, I take this. And when we travel out of town, I take this. So I'm just going to put that there and pour my green milk. It's kind of thick because of all the spinach, but that's okay. It's going to be that much more nutrient dense for us to enjoy. And actually, my husband and I are going to Eugene to pick up my daughter who's coming for the holidays tomorrow. And I'm going to have a buckwheat breakfast ready for both of us. So,
do you refrigerate that, Michelle, once you make it?
Yes. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. Then I'm going to show you one that's ready to serve. And I'm going to show you how I serve it for the holidays. So all we have to do is mix that in. And then we're going to mix in our cup of blueberries, which I already measured out. I always have berries, a cup of berries a day. You could use any berry you want. And I think raspberries would be super pretty at this time of year. But I happen to have blueberries and I don't freeze raspberries in the summer. So they're harder to get nice raspberries at this time of year, unless you buy them frozen. But we're just using the blueberries and you'll see it won't matter because this is pretty Christmas green. And it's amazing how you can sell green at Christmas time. I had a client a few years ago made green pancakes and she made them green by adding in spinach, but she called them Christmas pancakes for her kids. And then the next day after Christmas, they said, can we have Christmas pancakes again? But anyway, so this is ready to go in the refrigerator. And then we're going to grab out our one that's ready to serve. And I'm going to show you how I like to serve it at Christmas time. So here's one that is ready to serve. And I have a pretty serving bowl for Christmas with Christmas trees on it. And can you see this now? Already see how it thickened up? You see the difference?
Wow, like a pudding.
So what I like to do to make it pretty, and things being pretty and eye appealing, that's huge. Oh, another thing I was going to tell you, I didn't put this on the recipe, but you can certainly sprinkle cinnamon into that, or sometimes I put a teaspoon of cinnamon into that mixture, and that works just fine. And so what I'm going to do is layer about half of my buckwheat breakfast. This is really just a serving for one person, but it makes a nice big bowl. And so I kind of like to make it fun by layering it with, I have some cuties, some oranges, and then I have some pomegranates. It's pomegranate season and they're so beautiful at this time of year. So in the middle, I put a layer of cuties. These ones are a little big. When I peeled these last night, I was like, man, I got them because they were organic and a good price, but they're kind of big. So we're just going to put a layer of cuties and pomegranates there. Then we're going to put the rest of our buckwheat breakfast on. And if you use a glass bowl or a pretty glass container of some sort, then you can, you know, see how the pretty layers there. Makes it kind of eye appealing, I think. Oh, our cameraman's so good. He's showing you a side view, I think, of the bowl. Okay, so then on top, you can decorate it again with some of these cuties. and some pomegranates. And what a pretty Christmas breakfast, right?
That is gorgeous.
Yeah, all things holiday and all things fruit and veggie, and you can call it, your overnight Christmas breakfast. And because I'm Michelle and I'm about more veggies in my breakfast than that 3 ounces, I usually have at least a half a pound of celery and a half a pound of jicama, and this is how I eat it. I take and dip, and I use veggies as my vehicle.
That is so cool. You know, in culinary school, whenever we would make banana ice cream or any fruit dessert, we would use celery as our spoons.
Oh, I love it. So I didn't think of it myself. I thought I did. People always look at me like, what? Yeah, every day I have that. So that being made, that's our breakfast recipe. And we are going to move on to start our next recipe. We're going to make today, just let me clear my space a little. We're going to make a buckwheat wrap in a few minutes, but I wanted something savory to put in the wrap for today. And we are going to put, not this, getting the other tray. We're going to put a spinach artichoke dip into this wrap. So I have all my things for this. So we're going to start the spinach artichoke dip. And then while it's cooking, when it's almost done, before we make our wraps, we'll make the buckwheat granola. So we're going to be buckwheated out, but I have actually used buckwheat as a tool with many of my clients at Mastering Diabetes. Oats sometimes spike blood glucose. Buckwheat doesn't. We've seen it over and over. A lot of my clients wear CGMs, and when they eat oats, it goes way up, and it takes a long time to come down. For some of my clients, some do fine with those.
It's so funny that you said that today, because I host something called the Truth About Weight Loss Summit, hence the screen, every year. And I just interviewed Robbie yesterday, and he said the same exact thing, that not that oats are unhealthy, but especially the rolled oats, they're not as favorable as some of the other grains as a whole. Exactly. It's like eating the oat groat, for example.
Exactly. And the thing about buckwheat is it's actually not a grain. And a lot of people don't know that. It's a pseudo grain, just like quinoa and amaranth. It's really a seed. Grains grow on grasses, but buckwheat is a seed. So it doesn't impact blood glucose like some of the grains might. And it's also really cool that I did some research and I found out why it works so powerfully for my clients. There was a study done in Mongolia with 3,500 people, and they published it in PubMed. And it showed that buckwheat is powerful in preventing high blood glucose, high blood pressure, and cholesterol issues. So it just showed a big difference in the buckwheat group with those issues. And one reason why is because it's got a high mineral content, but some of the minerals it's high in are calcium, magnesium, iron, and phosphorus. But magnesium in particular is very helpful with insulin production and use. So it's just really neat to see that there's a reason why this helps people with diabetes so much as a stabilizing thing that they can eat. So moving on then to our next recipe, it's going to be bean-based artichoke and spinach dip. In my former life, we liked to make spinach and artichoke dip every year at New Year's. And now that we eat healthy and especially low fat, because spinach and artichoke dip usually has, first of all, we became plant-based and it has cheese, so we had to remake it. And then we had to take out all the cashews to be low fat, whole food, plant-based. So I really have been working on a tasty artichoke and spinach dip. And what I'm doing now is heating this pan, because I'm going to dry saute my onions to start this. I start almost everything with dry sauteed onions, it seems, all the savory dishes.
That's what I say. I always say everything starts with an onion.
That's right. And that's coming from a real chef, right? I'm a chef of sorts, but yeah, you're the real chef. So what an honor to be here with you. All right, so I wait till we get a sizzle in this pan. I'm going to grab some water so I can test it. And your pan has to be hot, so hot that it sizzles. This is important, not just for this, but when we start making our buckwheat wraps, if you try to stick this buckwheat stuff on the pan and it's not hot enough, then it's just going to stick and you're going to have a mess. Ask my husband, he's in training because he's retiring December 31st. And he's going to be doing more of the cooking because I'm so busy coaching with Mastering Diabetes. So I'm training him how to make these buckwheat wraps. And he learned the lesson the hard way that the skillet has to be hot enough. Okay. It's not ready because I put some water on it and it didn't sizzle. So it's not cooperating. Oh, there it's starting to sizzle. All right. And I have my onions ready to go. They're already chopped. And with onions, it's really powerful to chop them ahead. One of the doctors I follow, it's either Dr. Greger or Dr. B, says whack and wait, and one says chop and stop. But with onions, it's very helpful because some of the components, the healing components in the onion, actually begin to mix when you chop them. And you get the full health benefit by chop and stop or whack and wait. Okay, let's see if our skillet. Oh yeah, I don't know if you could hear that, but it's ready now. So we're going to put our onions on. And I learned from Chef Ken Rubin at Ruby how important it is not to mess with them so much. Just to put them on that hot skillet without any water or anything and let them go. So that's what we're going to start with today.
Talk about coaching a little. What does that mean exactly? Because I actually had a request to have somebody come on and talk about health coaching. Do you have to like train to do it? Is it intuitive? What does it mean like when you coach?
I've been coaching for over a decade. I was trained. I was first trained as an educator, and I'm still educating, but I'm a certified health coach. And with Mastering Diabetes, I am coaching people mainly insulin resistant with living with some form of diabetes, but we offer private coaching, which means you're one-on-one with me on a Zoom each week, and we go over goals and help you. I look at food logs with people and help them manage and reverse insulin resistance. And then we also have small group coaching, which is really cool because then the people are also with other people who are having the same issues they are, and we meet once a week as well. And we also have large group coaching. So we have all kinds of options depending on your budget and your needs. But, you know, it's making a lifestyle change is huge. So having somebody to walk you through it who has been there and actually lives this lifestyle and can just help you with the, you know, all the things you encounter right now. It's the holiday season. So I love my faithful clients who are showing up for themselves during these holiday weeks and just giving great stories about how they were prepared. And it's so helpful to get through the holidays with a coach, not trying to do it by yourself. So, yeah. Okay, so we're just leaving these onions go, and they're not quite ready to mess with yet. But what we're going to do, I'll walk you through it, is we are going to make a sauce that we're going to put over the onions and spinach in the Vitamix. So we're going to put our beans. I have 1 can of white beans here. And Then we're going to put lemon juice. I wanted to go in the order I had it here on the recipe. I have a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And this recipe calls for 4 cloves of garlic. And we are dividing them. We're going to put some in with the onions. And we are going to put some into this dressing. So what I'm putting in the sauce, the good thing is these 2 cloves that are going in the sauce don't have to be minced with the garlic mincer. And we are putting 1/3 of a cup of nutritional yeast.
Joy is asking what pan you're using.
Oh, I use ceramic nonstick. This one actually has stainless steel under it, which I love. And people always get nervous that I'm leaving these onions go so long, but they sort of start to caramelize if you let them brown well on the burner. And I like ceramic nonstick, but as soon as it's nicked, I replace it. So I replace my ceramic nonstick pans about yearly. You know, the big skillet that I use almost daily. And so that's what I'm using, a ceramic nonstick. Okay, we are starting to get browned on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. It's getting brown under the onions. So what happens then is we just put a tiny bit of water. You can see the brownness now. And we're going to get all that goodie off the pan. So we're basically caramelizing the onions, but a lot of people start with steam saute. And I don't think we let the depth of flavor of the onions develop as much when we put water in right away. This way we've got the nice flavor going on. And what we're going to do next is start adding in an entire pound of spinach. So I have a whole 1 pound crate of spinach. Talk about vegetables and greens. It's amazing how much greens cook down. So I'm going to turn my burner down now. It's been on medium high doing this. I don't want to over water because I don't want to end up having to let it cook down too much at the end to get the liquid off. But I'm going to fill it with spinach and then put the lid on. And then we're going to let it start cooking down while we continue to work on our sauce. Okay. And so we'll just let this cook. We want to watch it doesn't scorch. And then we're going to add more spinach until we get that entire container added. Back here to my blender container. So far we have put in the white beans, the lemon juice, the nutritional yeast, and now I have onion granules and garlic granules, as if there's not enough onion and garlic in this recipe, right? And then I'm using a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a ½ teaspoon. And I'm putting paprika and smoked paprika, 1/4 of a teaspoon of each. That smoked paprika gives a really nice flavor. And then I have a teaspoon of red miso paste. And I know somebody out there probably wants to know miso paste. I like miso paste. It gives some nice flavor. And this is the brand I like to get. This it's called Traditional Red Miso Master Organic. It's aged a year. It's delicious, and I use that. So I put a teaspoon of that in there, and that is everything that's going in this for the sauce, except for some pepper, which we're going to add in a minute. But before we blend that, let's check on our spinach and see how the spinach onion mixture is coming. Any more questions about coaching or mastering diabetes?
Well, Mandy said, like, but would you consider yourself a life coach? She goes, well, how do you know if you're giving the right advice? But you're specifically like a health coach, right?
I'm a health coach. I've been trained, and I've also been a lot of years on the journey myself. I've been plant-based since starting in 1997 and learning as I go. And I co-authored a book in the early 2000s called Never Be Fat Again. And that came out in 2007. And so yes, you have to read the science to know if you're giving the right advice. It's based on science. There's a lot of bad advice out there, as you know, Chef AJ. And so it's show me the study. Show me the science. People worry, oh, if I'm plant-based, am I going to get enough protein? Absolutely, you are. These greens, wow, this is going to be protein packed with greens and beans. So over here, we're back to my Vitamix. Let me find the tamper here. We're going to go ahead and mix our sauce so that when our spinach is ready, we'll have our sauce. Okay, so it's kind of thick. We blend it till it's smooth. And in a few minutes, we will add this to our spinach. We want to let this cook down. We're going to add the rest in. So if anybody has questions about—
Yeah, Sandy wanted to know, how long does miso paste last?
A long time. This had already been aged a year, and it expires 3/10/23, but I keep it in the refrigerator. So, and there are different varieties of miso paste. There's white miso paste, yellow miso paste. The red is more robust. So, if you could use any miso paste you have, but I keep red on hand because I'm all about robust flavor, and that's my favorite. But I've read some people who prefer like the more mellow white miso paste. So it's all up to personal taste. You see how much this is cooked down? We're about to get our entire pound of spinach in here.
Well, that looks good, even if you weren't going to turn it into a dip.
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to say, this recipe is so versatile. I am putting it into these wraps today to make a fun holiday appetizer. But you could totally dip veggies in it. You could just put it over a whole grain like brown rice and, use it as a meal in itself. Now I am putting, as the rest of this cooks down, I'm going to add the rest of the garlic. I'm going to add, this is a red bell pepper. Notice I have some pieces ready for garnish when we wrap in a bit, so I took those out, but it's one red bell pepper with a few slices reserved for garnish. So that goes in. Isn't that pretty? Right there is Christmas, right? Red and green.
Gorgeous.
Yep. And we are going to add in the other 2 cloves of garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and mince those right into the pan. As the last bit of spinach cooks down, we're going to let these peppers and garlic simmer in with it. And I have used the buckwheat wraps we're going to make in a few minutes. I've called them a game changer for me. I've used them in so many ways. I have a friend who discovered she could, you know, make them a little bit and use them for a sweet thing. So we have made dessert tacos with them. You know, you could add a little date into your mixture and some cinnamon and those kind of spices, and then put that, put ice cream inside the buckwheat wrap and drizzle some fruit topping on it, and you've got a beautiful dessert and so healthy. It's just buckwheat and bananas, basically. So, fruit. So, and we never should be afraid of fruit, you know. And speaking of grains, I don't know about you, Chef AJ, but on my journey, I've heard a lot of people saying that grains aren't good for us. I live with celiac disease and my gut microbiome needed healing, and buckwheat and other grains are great for feeding our gut microbiome. All plant foods are, but buckwheat's really good for that. And my gut loves buckwheat. So we're just going to let that cook. Oh, and we're going to add in half of our green onions. I think I put on the recipe to add those with the sauce, but we're going to put the sauce in soon enough. And we're going to add the artichokes in the sauce in a minute. One other thing I wanted to tell you about buckwheat. I told you it's chock full of minerals, but with many of the grains, we can't absorb the minerals. But because buckwheat is a pseudo grain and really not a grain, it doesn't have much phytic acid at all, which sometimes prevents some of the mineral absorption. So actually, it's more nutritious than most grains for that reason. You probably get a way better nutrient punch from buckwheat than something like oats or wheat or barley because of that. So there you go. Hopefully some of my coaching clients made it to the live show today.
They absolutely are. And they're saying that you're a great coach.
Oh, well, that's sweet. I have local clients who've coached with me for years. And I also have now, I reach the world from my living room. I have a client in Poland. I have had a client in Egypt. I have one in the UK, some in Canada, and all over the United States. It is such great fun. I've had a client in New Zealand, and so the virtual world's great. All right, you see how that's cooked up. Can you believe that entire crate of spinach is in there? And what beautiful colors we have going on there. And then we're going to add, this is an entire can of artichokes. Now, when you choose artichokes to buy, you want to be careful and get some that aren't too high in sodium. You also have to be extremely careful that you get artichokes in water, because so often artichokes are packed in oil and we don't want all that oil. So you want to get artichokes in water, and then I rinse them really well and drain them. And I've chopped them up here, and they're going into our artichoke and spinach dip. My favorite way to eat artichokes is in the spring when they're in season and just get the whole artichoke. I absolutely love that. And so we're going to stir that in, and then we're going to add our sauce. And then this will be ready for wrapping, but we're just going to set it aside. And before we make the wraps, we're going to make our granola, and then we'll wrap this last. So yes, notice this is thick, but that's okay because you've got a little bit of liquid going on here. And if you need more liquid, you can always add a little water. Rather err on the side of a little too thick than than a little too runny. You can always add water. The fun thing is scraping it all out of the blender. Not fun, but okay. So traditional artichoke and spinach dips are made with a lot of cheese, cream cheese, sour cream, cheddar cheese, and that's a lot of saturated fat, which is what creates insulin resistance, which is what drives a lot of diseases. People think it's just diabetes, but it's absolutely not. Insulin resistance drives Alzheimer's disease, PCOS, heart disease, and much, much more. Cancers. So
most of your coaching clients, though, have diabetes or pre-diabetes?
Oh, yes. Most of them. I have had a few people, like I have a weight loss group, but most of the people are living with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. But I had one gal just join for weight loss because, as you know, Chef AJ, the way we eat for to reverse diabetes also will naturally bring us with a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet to just the right weight, and it's easy to stay there. But in my weight loss group, I always emphasize the non-starchy vegetables. They're key for helping with the weight loss. And I love the fact that you're left of the line chart in our green light list.
I know, we are such kindred spirits. I tell you that it's amazing.
Yes, we totally are. They just fit together really well. And in fact, I have showed my weight loss group your left of the line list, and I say, what do these foods that are left of the line look like, folks? And they always say, those are all the green light foods. Yeah.
I know, isn't that great? It's so great. And we can eat them ad libitum. Colleen says, does red miso taste different? Do the different colored misos taste any different?
Yeah, red miso is stronger. It's, like I say, it's more robust. It's a stronger flavor. And I think it's Dr. Greger says he prefers white miso, but it's all about what you like. You can try the different ones. What a fun adventure plant-based living is. There's always something new to try and see what one you prefer, you know? So I use them interchangeably, but some people don't. And in fact, as a chef, you probably could give us a better lesson on misos are relatively new for me in the last few years. So I'm going to let this simmer a little bit while we start our buckwheat granola. So I'm just going to move that to low. It's really basically ready. We're just going to let that simmer. Are you ready for some granola?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes, I love the granola. So we're going to go ahead and make the granola next. So we need our blender again. Good thing I have some help here. You notice I couldn't possibly have my blender ready for every different thing if I didn't have some help cleaning out the blender. All right, so we're back to our Vitamix. Now, I call this pumpkin spice buckwheat granola. And it doesn't have any pumpkin in it. It has pumpkin spice. But just like when I make pumpkin spice cream, I'm getting the pumpkin spice flavor from the pumpkin spice. And my secret weapon is, instead of using pumpkin, I use a baked yam, sweet potato yam. It's actually a yam. And so I'm going to use this in my pumpkin spice granola. This is what prevents me from calling this raw, the recipe, even though I cook it in the dehydrator, because I use this half cup of, so I bake the sweet potatoes on a batch prep day. I love to bake sweet potatoes because I really enjoy them cold more than hot. So I bake them and I store them in my fridge, and then I can just grab a sweet potato if I need something to eat. And so I have a half cup with no skin. I save the skin because I eat it. I have, the next thing on the list is 2 very ripe bananas, which here they are. People always say to me when I buy so many bananas, bananas are perpetually on our grocery list. In fact, I've said if I had to live on just one fruit, I think I'd choose a banana. But people always say when I'm buying up all the bananas, oh, are you making banana bread? No, no, not making banana bread. I make lots of nice cream. And so these 2 bananas are mainly what's going to sweeten. And of course my yam is sweet, but I also have, you can use 2 or 3 dates. These are Medjool dates, and I soaked them a little bit to soften them a little, but you really wouldn't have to soak. Don't throw out that water that's been soaking there. You can use it for another use if you want a little bit of sweetness in something. That date water is great. And let's look at the recipe, Michelle. What else do we need? We need some vanilla. And I thought I had some here. I don't see it. We need the vanilla. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. Okay, this is my tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, hence I'm calling it pumpkin spice granola. And I also have a tablespoon of cinnamon. I like things spicy, and this recipe is best fixed in the dehydrator. You can bake it in the oven, but there are a lot of variables, and I'll talk about some of those in a minute. But it dries out really nicely in the dehydrator, and I keep it in a jar for months if I wanted, if it lasted that long. And so I'm putting it in the dehydrator, and I find that spices, things need to be spiced well, because I feel like they lose a little bit of tasting as spicy once they're ready. And I have a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm going to mix this up. And then we're going to be good to put this over our buckwheat that's soaked. I always start with the Vitamix turned down low and slowly ease it up. So I'm just going to get some of that goodie off the side. I want to make sure none of our pumpkin spice stays in the blender. We want that all in our granola. Yum. I really like this for travel too. I probably eat this for breakfast in green milk once a week, but mainly I use it. Mainly I use it for travel or a little treat. So we will come back to our Vitamix in a minute. Just going to give a quick check to my, oh, look at that bubbling. Giving this a quick check, making sure it's doing all right.
It almost looks like an Alfredo pasta.
Oh, wouldn't it be good over pasta?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they have some really nice bean pastas. I make zucchini noodles. I made sweet potato noodles that I really enjoy, but yes, it would be great over pasta. And I was going to show you at the start and didn't. I have, this is buckwheat pasta. If you're going to use a pasta, a whole grain pasta is nice. And all this is buckwheat and water, organic buckwheat and water. So you could make buckwheat pasta and put that over top of it if you wanted. Okay, I'm going to get everything here out of my way. So, and I'm going to grab my buckwheat. I want to show you, get a good picture of this. This buckwheat was soaked overnight. And then this morning, just a couple hours ago, I poured it out into my strainer. So technically this is sprouted. It's been sitting in the strainer. I rinsed it for a couple hours, but I want you to see how much water. This is the variable. This is why baking this recipe, I had one client try baking it in her oven. And she said, you know, it took a long time to dry out. Well, depending how much of the water you get out of there, that's the variable. So letting it sit in the drainer for a while, I like to sit it at an angle and just let all that drip out. And now it is ready to just pop into my bowl. And I am going to mix this yummy mixture over it. And I don't do much dried fruit because it's concentrated sugar, but one exception I make is goji berries because I can't get them fresh and they're really high in choline. They're pretty for Christmas too. But goji berries have more choline than eggs. I learned this a few years ago and I was really surprised because eggs get touted as the big source of choline, but who wants to eat a hen's period, right?
Exactly.
So, my mother has macular degeneration and my father did. And choline is really good for the eyes. So goji berries are and they're not as sweet as some dried fruits, but they're not as concentrated in sugar, but they are my one dried fruit I have a couple times a week for the choline for my eyes. And there are other sources of choline, but none really compare that I've found. If you know a source of choline, that's.
Michelle, does goji berries have the same caloric density as the other dried fruits, 1,300 calories per pound?
I wouldn't think so because they are way lower in sugar than some of the dried fruits. So 3 tablespoons have 110 calories, which, you know, that's not as high as 3 tablespoons of some dried fruits. And so, and the total sugars in 3 tablespoons though is 13 grams. However, so this would be the equivalent of 4 tablespoons, but it's going to be amongst all this granola. So
there's a question about where you buy the buckwheat noodles and is it the same as soba noodles?
Yes, soba noodles are buckwheat noodles and you can get them at any health food store. So yeah, and they're you know, a little different from other noodles. So try them and see if you like them. I don't eat any noodle, just the noodle. Usually I always at least cut with 2/3 zucchini noodles and 1/3 any other whole grain or bean noodle that I would use. So that's how I roll because then it's mostly vegetables. And that's what I'm about. Lots of vegetables. Keeps us healthy and strong. When I went, Chef AJ, this is interesting. When I went to starting to weigh my vegetables, Dr. Furman had encouraged me to weigh non-starchy vegetables, you know, by his books in the late 90s, Eat to Live. And I thought, oh, I'm sure I do 2 pounds a day. And then when I read your book, Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take in and I'm going to weigh them. And I found out I wasn't eating 2 pounds. So when I made that change, what was I saying that to say?
Change of.
Yeah, about vegetables. I don't know. That was just so powerful for me. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. I started getting all kinds of new hair growth. I would lift up my bangs and I had tons of new hair growing in. And it was just all these nutrients in those non-starchy, colorful vegetables. Amazing. Okay, so I'm mixing this up. And then my little assistant over there maybe can find the dehydrator. Oh, no, I think it's over here, so I'll find it. I have a dehydrator tray. I have an Excalibur dehydrator, and I dehydrate at 105 degrees, which actually keeps the enzymes alive. So the buckwheat in this granola that you will see as the final product is actually raw, as is the banana. The only thing cooked here is the sweet potato, and the goji berries may be heated in the process. I don't know. Of drying. Okay, so that's that. And I'm using a silicone sheet on my dehydrator tray. And you could do this however you want. I like it to be in chunks like this so that I can just grab a chunk. It's not a granola bar, it's a granola chunk, but I like nice big chunks because if I wanted a snack, I might take that, and that would do it. So, but I was saying my gut loves buckwheat. My gut microbiome it just thrives with buckwheat. I think the best grains for my body, which is, they don't know everything about celiac disease. I've been on the journey. I was diagnosed in 2003 and then came to find out, wow, I react the same way when I eat oats as I react when I eat a gluten grain. And
You think it's because of the cross contamination? I mean, if you could somehow
I don't know. There was a lot of debate early on in my celiac journey. There was a lot of debate over whether oats were really gluten-free. And then they decided, oh, it's just cross contamination. And so if you get certified gluten-free oats, you're good. And then I discovered I wasn't good. And not only that, my daughter has celiac disease. She discovered she can't eat oats. And her doctor friend and her mother both have celiac disease, and neither of them can eat oats. So I wonder, I don't know. I think they're still learning things. And they used to say, just be gluten-free and you're good. That's not true either. There are ongoing issues. I believe gastroparesis, the slowing of the whole gastrointestinal tract, is linked with celiac disease. That's my personal, I've been studying that, and I do believe that. So all that to say, buckwheat has been a great find for my gut, and teff is the other one. Teff is an Ethiopian grain most people don't know about, but I really enjoy teff, and it's also great for my gut and my digestion, along with quinoa and amaranth and other grains that are more familiar. Okay, so there it is. And you see how that is. I kind of leave it thickened together, and then I can break it into chunks. And what I'm going to do is put this in my dehydrator at 105 degrees. And then tomorrow morning when I get up, I'll just take another tray with a silicone sheet and I'll flip the whole thing over. And so then it dries better, and it you know, depending, it's really good at that chewy stage, but I let it dry all the way when I'm going to save it and have it for long term. So this is ready to go in the dehydrator. And now the exciting part, I get to show you how to make those wraps.
Yay.
And they're so simple. And I honestly can't take credit for these wraps. I learned about these wraps from a man on YouTube, and in preparation for this, I was trying to find out who he was, because he did a simple buckwheat and water wrap, and I was trying to figure out what the man's name was, but he talked about how he reversed his diabetes and he didn't eat bread anymore, but he loved these wraps. So I tried them a few years ago, and like I said, I make them weekly because for me, you can wrap leftovers. So I told one of my groups this week. This is kind of funny. I make soup and I do big batch preps. And so when I am getting tired of the soup and my husband's getting tired of eating the soup, then I mix the soup with some brown rice or quinoa, and I serve it in one of these wraps with sprouts and lettuce and other veggies, and it's so great. So I am right now heating my burner, this other burner, and we're going to let that warm, and then we're going to make our wraps there. But again, we're going to do the sizzle test with my water, because if it doesn't sizzle, they're going to stick. This is another non-stick ceramic. You can see I'm not sold on one brand because this is a different one. I'm coming back to this because I like to put some cracked pepper that I don't put in the Vitamix on top. It's pretty, it adds good flavor. So fresh cracked pepper in that, and then I can set that aside. And so basically all that's required for these buckwheat wraps is buckwheat and water. And the great thing is my blender has markings on it. So normally I would put 1.25 cups of water in my blender, And then I would put a cup of dry buckwheat. But I couldn't do that since I was using the blender so much today. So I soaked it, if you can get this. I soaked it overnight, or not overnight, just this morning. You need to soak it, what's the minimum I've soaked it? Maybe 45 minutes, but usually I give it a couple hours to soak. What did I do with my scraper? And I soak it right in the buckwheat in the blender. So you want to talk about easy. It doesn't even dirty a second item. I just soak it right in here because you're not going to drain it. You're just going to blend it. Basically, that's it. You blend that, you have a wrap. But being a cook that likes flavor, I always spice it. My husband says being a foodie, which yes, I am. So on the recipe, you can see the whole buckwheat wrap on the plate there. That's how they'll turn out. And I guess you'll see in a minute. But so for this one, I just used seasonings that I thought pair well with the filling I'm using. So I have onion granules and garlic granules. I can't see the blender here that I'm putting in. And then I used a little bit of smoked paprika, a little bit of curry powder, and a little bit of cumin. The original recipe had salt in it, but since I'm not using salt because at Mastering Diabetes, we don't use salt, I am just putting a teaspoon of wheat-free tamari just to give a little bit of flavor there. You could use an miso if you wanted. I'm also going to add some black pepper to this just because, fresh black pepper. Anytime I use something with turmeric, like the curry powder, I put some black pepper to help with the uptake of the curcuminoids in the turmeric. And then we're going to blend. And you're ready to roll as soon as our pan is hot. It's so simple. So oftentimes, like I say, I'll wrap leftovers. And so when I get my lunch break, I'll have that buckwheat soaked and I will just come and make some wraps and then we're ready to roll with lunch.
Isn't that convenient that I do this show at this time?
Oh, it is. Yeah. In fact, I told my helpers today, I have a dear friend who's washed these Vitamixes for me. And I told her, you know, you can stay and eat the food with us after. She said, all right, you got a deal. So you can make this into however many wraps you want. It just depends what size you want them. And it depends how thick or thin you want them. I usually end up adding a little bit of water to this batter as I go. I'm just going to do the sizzle test. Ready? Yeah, it's ready. It's hot. It's good to go.
Where's your spreading spoon?
And I use a ladle for this. You find your own tool, but when you pour this batter on, it's going to be kind of thick, and in order to spread it out, you can pour it and spread it a little, but I like to use a ladle to make a nice big one because we're going to wrap this and then cut it into slices. But I like to make it about the size of a lettuce leaf because no matter what we're putting in it, the next thing that goes on for me is always a lettuce leaf. And then I've put leftover chili in there, my refried beans, all kinds of things. You name it, I've wrapped it. So the trick here, though, is not to mess with it till it is totally dry on top. This buckwheat tortilla is drying out as we go here. And so you're just gonna wait. And while we wait, guess what we can do? We can stir our
I was going to say, while you wait, you can eat the other items.
This is true, but I'll enjoy them more when we're done. That's my MO. So, anybody have any other questions about buckwheat? I wonder if people like buckwheat.
I think that a lot of people don't know much about it. And somebody's asking, well, if it's not a grain, what is it? It's a grass, right?
It's a seed.
It's a seed.
It's a seed. That's why it's higher in protein than the grains. Still very low in fat. Great nutrient profile.
But yet it doesn't have the caloric density of like other seeds, right?
Well, quinoa is a seed technically, because same reason, it's a pseudo grain. All right, see this, how it's dried out now? You can see the areas that are still a little wet. So when I think it's mainly dry, I take my little, actually I have a very big, thin tool I use for this. If you get too anxious, you're gonna have a mess. You gotta let it dry. That might have been my husband's issue. It might have been he didn't have the skillet hot enough, but I got home from a dental appointment and he said, I made a mess of the wraps. So, but they're really not hard. Okay, it's ready to flip. Now watch. Beautiful. The first one isn't usually as pretty as the following ones, kind of like when you make pancakes. That's how it is. So, and I make an amazing.
It looks like you're making pancakes.
Yeah, they sort of look like a big flat pancake, but when it cools, you will see how well it folds and wraps. It's just wonderful. I'm going to get a piece of parchment paper because typically I just stack them with parchment.
How do you store these, Michelle, after you make them? And
well, I've never had that problem because no matter how many I make, they're gone. I usually eat one or two with my lunch. And my husband will eat the rest no matter how many I make. My friend said, oh, I make a double batch and I put them in a Ziploc in the fridge and then I just get them out the next day and warm them up. You know, you can eat them cold, but they're nice warmed on the pan. See how nice, and they're sturdy. That's what I like. And they don't break like some things do. We're just going to make one more and then we're going to call it good and I'll make the rest later. It will make about 5 or 6 this size, depending just exactly how big you make them. And as my batter gets a little bit thick, sometimes I'll just add a little bit of water and set it on the Vitamix and I'll just cover it like this to make sure, but I just turn it on low to mix that in. There we go.
That is fascinating. Lisa says, can you grind buckwheat into a flour like you can oat flour?
Yes, you can. I put it in my little flaxseed grinder and I make it into flour. And anytime where you would grind oats in a recipe, guess what I grind? And it's a 1-to-1 exact for oats. So why not diversify? That's what I say. Even if you can eat oats, why not diversify? I mean, Dr. B is big on that. Diversity of plants, diversity of plants. Give your gut microbiome something different to feed on this week. Try buckwheat. Yeah. So one more, and then we're going to transition to wrapping some of this buckwheat that I have. Are you a neat cook, Chef AJ? Because I'm
the messiest cook there is.
Oh, you are? Oh,
yeah.
Good to know. Okay, because I make the biggest messes. Fortunately, I have a partner in my husband who is great at cleaning up after me. And I am so blessed because I do very little of the grocery shopping or the cleanup. He takes care of all that and I just do the creations. So, all right, see, here we go again. It's getting nice and dry. You want your burner, my burner's up on medium high, and I keep it that way. And as you go, they're going to get a little bit more brown. That always is how it is with pancakes. That's how it is with these. So
that is so cool.
Yeah. And who would have thought just buckwheat and water and spices? You'll have to try them
I
because
wonder if you can do that with other grains like quinoa, maybe just make
I've tried it. I've seen recipes with quinoa and I thought, oh, cool, you can do the same thing with quinoa. Or I've seen recipes with red lentils. Nothing works as good as buckwheat in my experience so far.
Well, I'm hoping they have it next time I go to Clark's in the bulk section.
Yeah, I'll be so eager. Please tell me if you try it and how you like it. So we have 2 wraps ready and we're just gonna take the pan off the burner. I'll make the rest later because I want to show you how we can wrap this to make a pretty Christmas appetizer or New Year's Eve, whatever, holiday or anytime. So we're going to take these wraps. I'm going to just start with this one's probably nicer. See how nice they are? I mean, and I have wrapped all kinds of stuff and they don't break apart. Like, you know, so many tortillas break when these are so sturdy and never need bread again. It's beautiful. So I'm going to sit it right here and we're ready to wrap, ready to roll, wrap and roll. Okay. We are going to put some of this beautiful filling on our wrap. And I recommend you leave 1/4 of the wrap without the filling. So you want it from end to end. You could just wrap and eat this like this. You don't have to cut it into these appetizers, but I was just trying to give something pretty for the holidays. So you want to leave that end so that we can toothpick it closed. So I'm putting that, and then I'm a huge person into sprouts. I love making my own sprouts. So these are broccoli and clover sprouts. And I love the way it looks and the way it tastes with some sprouts in there. And then I'm putting some of those reserved red peppers. I'm going to cut this into 3 rolls. So I'm going to kind of try to leave a space for each. And then I have some tomatoes. Look at that beautiful color. Red and green again. Don't we love the holidays? And then some green onions. Gotta love scallions. And amazing, I read a book on cancer, and they tested different vegetables to see which were the most powerful at killing cancer cells for different kinds of cancers. And scallions, amazingly, were in the top 1 or 2 for almost every cancer they checked. We don't think of them as cancer fighters. Then I'm going to roll this carefully. And you see why I left the end, because I have a knife somewhere hiding here. Here it is. I'm going to cut this into 3. You want a serrated knife for this, a bread knife, or this is a tomato knife. So you can cut this nicely. But then you can take and toothpick it closed. And I'm going to stand it up. And then I'm going to decorate it with a tiny bit of sprouts on top and a tomato and some green onions. Isn't that pretty? Yes, it is.
Gorgeous. It is. It's show-stopping.
Yeah. And so we are ready to have some company. You're going to have to roll these, you know. I mean, they're good cool, though. Like, they'll be cool by the time we eat them after the show's over. And you really can't go wrong. They're delicious. So, and our third one. And all things buckwheat me. Yeah. We put them on a pretty Christmas plate. And you don't have to, and I always tell my clients this, don't announce, this is healthy or this is different. Just call them artichoke and spinach wraps, you know? Yeah. Don't apologize for healthy, for sure. And don't tell them. Okay, so that's that dish. And that's pretty much what I have for you today. I have the buckwheat rolls. the buckwheat granola and that pretty buckwheat breakfast. And I hope I've inspired some of you today just to try buckwheat.
Well, you inspired me. And it's not that I never had it. I just never think about it. It's not my go-to grain. So, and I wish somebody would do for millet what you did for buckwheat, because it's also an underused grain.
Oh, it totally is. I have made some cool things with millet too. I've explored these grains that a lot of people don't know because I had to with celiac disease. When I name some of these grains like teff and millet, and people are looking at me like, oh, is it millet for sprays for birds? No.
No, it's delicious. Well, this has been a fabulous presentation. Your food looks delicious and it's so beautifully presented. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Chef AJ. It's been my pleasure.
And thank your husband for helping. He sounds awesome.
Oh, he is awesome. And so is my BFF here who washed the blender for us because he's holding the camera.
Well, they get to eat now, so it was definitely
Yes,
worth
they
it.
do. All right.
Happy
Well,
holidays.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to you.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
go.
Well, come back next year because your presentations are fabulous, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And I put the link where people can follow you on Instagram if they want private coaching and all the recipes. So thank you so much.
And if they want private coaching, it would be good to go to masteringdiabetes.org, and there's a coaching tab. So all they have to do is type in masteringdiabetes.org and click on coaching, and you'll see all the options. And if you're living with insulin resistance, I'm telling you, you can't beat Mastering Diabetes because there's a money back guarantee. If you don't lower your A1C and lose weight, it's your money back. So how can you go wrong?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. This was wonderful. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when my guests are the Gentle Giants. Take care.